All right, I'm excited to be here today with my new friend Justin Beretta. So, Justin, let me give you a quick introduction. Justin was one of the founding members of the Glitch Mob, and now he's focused on a new project, a new release, a new album, specifically for his project Beretta. And a little bit about him: he's a groundbreaking electronic artist with hundreds of millions of streams and sold out global tours. He's collaborated with spiritual luminaries like Ram Dass and projects like Wavepaths, blending music with mindfulness and healing. Yes, that is awesome. And he's also an advisor and creator at the frontier of music times tech. He's the world's premier NFT expert. And I'm just kidding. We were joking about that backstage. But he's at the convergence of music times tech, including immersive audio experiences and AI-driven art. So, Justin, thank you for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, Michael. Great to be here.
Absolutely. I couldn't resist it. It
was too good.
Well, Justin, to kick things off, I'd love to hear just a little bit more about your story and how you started out and eventually went on to reach hundreds of millions of streams and sold out shows worldwide.
Sure. Yeah. I ended up in a band by accident. I wasn't someone who played in bands in high school. I was a computer nerd. I was into tinkering. I had Fruity Loops and I had turntables. And for me, it was very much rave culture that started me into this whole process. But I'm more of a technologist than a music person. But obviously, ultimately, they all blend together into one thing. And then later in time, came into music and joined and founded the Glitch Mob with two other guys, sort of accidentally. I never intended that. And then went on this crazy 15-year journey around the world. We had tons of remixes and albums and tours, and a lot of things like that always start sort of accidentally, or at least it was something that emerged from a love of music and performance. And then recently I decided to leave so I could focus fully on my own solo music. So I've been exploring that for the past couple of years. And as of today, actually, May 16, we're in the middle of the album release cycle. So that the full album comes out June 5th. And we had a single come out last week. And I guess one other piece to this is in 2018, I became obsessed with ambient music, and I had my whole own spiritual journey, and really having a side project with a friend called Superposition. And we released a bunch of albums, went deep into that and making music for psychedelic therapy. And then my new album is a convergence of all those things. It's my time making dance music and being on stage, making custom instruments, and then my time in the depths of the ambient worlds.
Wow. That is super cool. I mean, all of that sounds right up my alley. I looking forward to being a part of the album release and listening to the songs. So could you share a little bit more about, there's a lot of different parts of the onion I feel like we could unpeel there, but one of the things that stuck out to me was the convergence of psychedelic therapy with music. And so I would love to hear you talk a little bit about that part specifically, especially as it's, maybe with some more of the taboo part of culture right now. And it also seems like there's some major developments in terms of like breakthrough therapy status, and there's sort of like a wave that's happening right now. So I'd love to hear you share a little bit more about that and why you feel like that's an important part of the movement.
It's a great question, and it's changing all of the time so much because of what's happening around legalization and research. And it was a completely taboo topic in the 80s and 90s. And that recently there has been so much research on the effectiveness of these tools, these medicines, to help specifically with certain ailments. But for me, it was more of a self-exploration tool. It helped inform specifically my relationship with music, and inform the way that I think about music and life in general. So I wanted a way to explore the intersection of music and psychedelics in a very intentional way, because obviously there's one part of the story where, I mean, music and psychedelics have, have gone together for the entirety of human history. So in one sense, it's actually the oldest story. And even thinking about growing up watching in movies like The Doors, where they go out to the desert and take peyote and have these spiritual experiences and put it into music, or like Pink Floyd was Dark Side of the Moon was my number one album, and growing up I listened to that probably 100,000 times. And recently, with the advent of ketamine therapy, which has been legal in the States for quite a while, there's a need for specific music and functional music that takes people on a journey. And Wavepaths is a really cool technology. That was the first time I did any of this, and it's a company from the UK. And what they do is they create a system for therapists who are guiding a psychedelic session. It's with ketamine, but it will work with other medicines as well. But the idea is that if someone is feeling a certain way, let's say the therapist has this intuitive sense that they need to feel more joy, or maybe they're so joyful they want to bring them down a little bit. So there's a system musically to nudge people in different directions. And it's actually very similar to DJing. It's the same thing, except it's for people that are not DJs in the sense, in the classical sense of the term. So making music for that, I was able to work with the company to create soundscapes and very particular emotions. And then I tested the protocols myself. So I had a prescription for ketamine, and then I would go in and see what it's like. Because a lot of the people that are going through this, maybe they're dealing with depression, or you have veterans or people who are going through all sorts of stuff in life. And typically when we're releasing music, it's just like we put it out there into the world. I mean, maybe we hear how it affects people, or you see it in a concert. People are dancing, they're smiling. But for this, it's such a different lens for me to appreciate the power of music. And then for me to go into these states and experience it, that ultimately went back into my whole creative process and informed the way that I think about music production in general. Like I can't decouple those things now, because really without the music, there is no psychedelic therapy. The music takes you through the whole journey.
Wow. That is so cool. It sounds like what you're saying is that it's giving you an intentional lens on music and its role in taking people on journeys, and actually intentionally creating a journey that's designed for healing for someone who is using these medicines to be able to unblock or get in touch with some trauma, and being able to create a journey through the music intentionally has also just given you an appreciation for the role of music to what it's always done, is to kind of bring people on these different types of journeys.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't talk about this often because of the taboo nature of this, but for the past 7 years, once a year, I've attended an ayahuasca ceremony. And when you talk about the music and the role of music in these journeys, it's such an important part of the whole ritual and ceremony is the facilitators and the music, and the breakthroughs that people have through these events is so remarkable that it's kind of wild. It's wild to me that like it's not more out in the open, I guess. It feels like it's starting to become more appreciated, more just sort of recognized as a tool for healing. Curious from your perspective, because also like, these are some very powerful tools, and there also is like sort of a still like a large stigma around, around these types of tools. So I'm curious, from your perspective, like why is that? And how should someone who's maybe listening to this right now, who immediately when they hear something like this is like, extremely concerned, like how would you speak to them?
It is such a cool time to have access to so many incredible teachers, and obviously the power of YouTube and the internet. And when I first got into this stuff, The only information available that I could find was a site called Arrowwood, which is still up. And it's basically this old school news board, looks like Craigslist, and it has trip reports from people. And I would go and, and read everything. Before I had my first mushroom trip, I remember reading these things and trying to understand if it was dangerous or not. And now there's so much good information out there. It's a really incredible time. I mean, just last month, Michael Pollan was on Oprah talking about this. And I think that his book is a great starting point for someone coming in as a skeptic, thinking, I don't know, is this for me? Is this safe? I've recommended that book quite a bit to people and who've come out the other side thinking maybe this is for me and I'll have an experience, or maybe not. And it's a really good place. It's a really good place to start. And at the same time, the reason I love music so much is that it can take you on a journey without any of these substances, and they're not for everybody too. That's one thing, is it's easy to look at this and feel like it's a silver bullet and they might fix everything, and there's so much hype around it. And I have been changed, and I know so many people that have had their lives changed in positive ways. But it's important to take a healthy dose of reality and skepticism that it doesn't really work for everyone. And recently, I've been exploring breathwork more and more, which is great because there's a ripcord and you can go really deep and have very profound psychedelic experiences. And if you want to stop, you just stop. You can get up and that's the difference, obviously, with these medicines that can last for 5, 10, 14 hours. So breathwork is a really good place to start. It's free. Everyone has the ability to breathe, and there's stuff on YouTube where you can go and listen and have these experiences, experiment right away. And I feel like if you have a breathwork experience and you go deeper into it and you think, okay, I see why this is powerful. I like the sense of change and altering and changing consciousness, and I want to go deeper. There are a bunch of really incredible resources as well. I think it's Retreat Finder or something. I'm getting the exact name wrong, but it's almost like a Yelp for retreats that can help you find a good one through various ratings. There's a couple in Jamaica, which is legal there. So if people are interested, you can sign up to learn more and go into these retreat centers. And there's also a magazine called Double Blind that has really good vetted information and a lot of 101 Q&A sorts of blog posts where I've sent it to quite a few people who want to just to know what are the best practices, how do I deal with harm reduction, stuff like this. But Double Blind is really powerful resource.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing those resources and places for people to, get started to kind of explore whether it's right for them or not. Knowing your background in mindfulness meets music meets healing, I'd love to hear your perspective on the state of where the world's at right now and kind of where it's heading with technology. Feels like right now is a unique time in history where we have a new form of intelligence that's like rapidly emerging with AI, and it's almost, it appears to be on an exponential curve. There's this theoretical singularity event that's on the horizon. And so I'm curious to hear your perspective as someone that's kind of at the intersection of music and tech and healing and the state of the world right now. It feels like we're kind of at a point where we're capable of potentially destroying ourselves and the world if we don't, kind of handle things well. And so curious to hear your perspective on the role of music and these tools that are available now to help humanity.
I'm so glad you're asking this question and thinking about it, also because you spend so much time talking to artists, and I feel very strongly that art, music has a powerful role to play in shaping the way that these things go. And these tools are so powerful, and it depends on who is controlling them and who has the models, who's doling them out, because the tool itself is is sort of like as agnostic, but then you have a company like OpenAI that puts it in a product and sells it and directs it at things. Well, then their agenda is determining the way that the way that the road winds towards the singularity. So I have friends who are on both sides, and I'm sure that you've heard so many people on either side. Some people are so excited by this moment and feel inspired, and some people feel scared and don't want anything to do with it, and if it could feel divisive. And I empathize with both sides, and actually I kind of go back and forth between both. But I am someone who's chosen to understand and learn how to use these tools, and I've always been like that. Going back to when I didn't start in a guitar. I started with software, with SoundForge. And so for me, it's always been about tinkering, and the tool then informs the way that I create. I knew everything in Ableton now. And so without Ableton, I wouldn't be making music. So in a way that my relationship with technology is my relationship with music. And before we started, we were talking about this project that I'm working on right now, which is, I think, an interesting example of this, where my latest single, Back to Life, has a vocal on there that I created with Imogen Heap's vocal model that she ethically trained using her own vocals, that she controls, that she essentially grants access to people. And the whole thing about, she's an absolute legend and a luminary. And I'm grateful to have worked on this with her, because it's a form of performance art, right? Because excuse me, I did not need to do this necessarily, but I wanted to explore what it felt like, because people confuse or conflate AI with a tool that has been trained on copyrights, right? Because you think about AI is bad, that means that it's vacuumed up all of this art and it's just regurgitating it. Well, that's not necessarily true. A lot of the times it is. But with this, Imogen took all of her vocals from all of her stems and sessions over this long, illustrious career and made a model that then she can say, her model's name is Mogen, and Mogen performed on my song. So I had real vocal samples. I'll tell you how, since this is a music pod, we can go a little deep into the weeds, but I found a vocal sample on Splice, and it had this chop in it. It's called Bring Me Back to Life. And it was like, bring me back to life. And I didn't like the way it was chopped. It was also to a different tempo. So I actually wrote the sample manufacturer and I said, hey, can I get this original sample from you? And he was so kind. He said, oh yeah, sure. And he went back into the session. He sent me the sample. And then I sent that to a friend of mine. I had her re-sing it with different harmonies, and then sent that to Imogen. And she's extremely busy doing all sorts of crazy shit all the time. And she's like, I don't have time to do a session with you, but I'm going to have my team run this through. So I wake up the following morning. I have this massive Dropbox folder full of vocal takes, all sorts of different things for me to play with of that model performing, which she told me that she's so scattered with her projects that would have taken 6 months to get to. And then I took that and basically resampled it and put it into the song. So that is the sort of a long-winded way of saying that I think that artists tinkering and creating these new ways to understand this is really important. And for artists that are curious, I encourage people to get involved. And if you hate this stuff, I understand. And I feel like after this whole thing comes to the exponential fruition over the next couple of years, that things like folk music or playing drum machines are things that where we really get to see people's hands performing and feel humanity will become really valuable, but not from a financial sense. More of that, we're going to crave that after everything is going to become so overwhelmingly latent and AI. So I'm interested in finding ways to bring the humanness into this technological process.
Awesome. Yeah. So it sounds like, with the rise of AI and these different tools, it also kind of creates a tension or creates a need for the humanness. And so by bringing those things into your art and still using the tools that are available, because you're able to do things like shorten a 6-month time frame down into like hours. But there is like a piece that can't be replaced, and that's the soul or the heart of it that you can continue to focus on, and then just use these tools as a way to extend that.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about the thing that can't be replaced, because I think that's a really subtle but an important piece of this, is that there's a lot of talk about people's jobs being replaced and people being replaced. Maybe artists are going to be replaced. And certainly some of that is true. And because if you're a company who's making ads, and maybe in the past you would have hired someone to make a track, well, if you need to cut your budget and you're going to be able to do something with AI, then certainly if it's going to save you thousands of dollars, I could see how that might happen. And at the same time, I believe that we can tell when there's a human to human connection and an interaction, right? Where it's like, if you hear something out in the world, you might be touched by an AI song. You might even think, wow, these lyrics are speaking to me, and I really like this song, or maybe you're humming along to it. That's possible, and that will happen. We will all have an experience where there's going to be an AI generated song that touches us. But I feel like what it's really about is the humanness that is being transferred through the song. There's a special thing in the music that AI cannot replicate. So, for instance, I was just listening to Tyler, the Creator's new album, but then I'm listening to him talk about it, and I'm watching the show, and it's the songs are incredible, but it's not really about the recorded music to me. I'm impacted by him and how he communicates through all of these various mediums. So if anything, this is a time for us to use all of these tools to communicate at scale. And I think that's the exciting invitation with a lot of these new practices.
Cool. I dig it. Yeah, what this reminds me of is we had Nolan Arbaugh on our podcast a few months ago, and Nolan is the first human to have a Neuralink installed.
Wow!
And so he's quadriplegic and really didn't have a way to make music aside from having a Neuralink installed, where he can control things essentially telepathically with his thoughts.
Wow.
And so on the podcast, he created a song telepathically using his Neuralink and AI music generation.
Incredible.
And it was sort of gave me like a glimpse of that, what you talked about, the thing that can't be replaced. Like and maybe it's like the spark or the creative, like the thought, or that sort of the essence, like where it kind of comes from. I'd be curious to hear your perspective as someone who is involved in a mixture of mindfulness and healing and music and future technology, and the root of the self, and how that plays out. When we talk about things like global wars and potentially like catastrophic things that could happen, what do you think is at the root of this kind of dysfunction or like disease in the world, and how can we help heal that as artists?
That's a big question, and I have no idea what's at the root of all this, but I do know that for me, and from what I see, music is an incredibly powerful tool to connect and to heal. And the process of making music has changed so much that I'm really excited about the fact that a lot more people can get involved in the process of making music right now. And that I was just having a conversation with someone the other day about a metaphor of music as like a paper plane, of being able to send healing to create connectivity between people. And it feels like almost a cliche to talk about that. It's like it has the we are the worldness, but I really do believe that, and I think that the power of music, especially live music, as people become more and more isolated, and as we are sucked into our devices, I mean, when else do you come into a room of hundreds, if not thousands, of other people to connect over something that that we all share and love together? I mean, this is why I love live music so much, and it plays such a crucial role in society. There's a quote by Oliver Sacks where he talks about music as a social cement, and his books are so incredible. Musicophilia changed my life many times over, but that one in particular made me realize how music does connect us, even in a one-to-one sort of way. I mean, even with all the recommendation algorithms we have, I still love sharing music word of mouth with people. I mean, I don't know about you, but to me, if I have a friend who's a music person and they give me something and they say, "Hey, you got to listen to this," like I'm going to actually sit there and listen to the whole album.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's something about that network effect of when it kind of feels like that's the root of music, it's the root of community in general, right? Like community in general is about relationships. And it's sort of like we're all neurons in one brain, and there's these different action potentials that are kind of going back and forth. And music sharing is like one of those layers of connectivity that can create a stronger, like what you said, like a cement between those neurons. And what is the phrase? Neurons that wire together, fire together. It certainly feels like that's how communities form, and music is sort of this layer on top of music that bonds us and brings us together.
Absolutely. And also the way that it connects to the lens of psychedelics, and the reason why these tools are available right now is interesting, because they've been available in cultures all over the world for so many thousands of years. I mean, you've had these ayahuasca experiences. I mean, those songs that they sing in those sessions, the Icaros, are so beautiful, and they feel so ancient and part of us. And I think that's easy for us to want to monetize and productize all of these things. But this like music is in our DNA, and it is so deeply woven into this idea of rhythm and language and the connectivity between us, that I do believe in the power of the combination of these medicines plus the ubiquity of music to heal of a lot of the problems that modernity is causing. And it's such a fascinating, interesting time to be. I'm definitely a bit of a cautious optimist when it comes to all of these things, because it's easy to also to get sucked into the fear. And when we get into a fight, flight, freeze fear state, and I mean, we have this thing here right now that has the phone has so much information. It has the ability to pull you into a complete limbic freeze instantly. If I go open up my Apple News app, I'm just going to go, ah! And music for me is such a powerful way to come out of that. When I need to come down from a difficult day, or if something's happening, I always have my playlists or my certain songs where I can go outside and listen to music. And I hear that from so many people too, releasing music into the world that sometimes it can feel like being an artist seems frivolous. I hear this from a lot of different, like, oh yeah, I just make an artist. So like my sister is a doctor, and I hear about what she does in life at the hospital, but it's funny because when she comes home from her day at work, she wants to put on her music and listen and come down, or on the way to her job. She needs her tunes, she needs her jams to be able to fire up and get through the day. So I feel like it is the substrate of this whole healing process.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I really like how you've articulated just the the baseline of like what music does in terms of like the glue, the cement, the substrate. One thing I would be great to hear your perspective on is, as an artist yourself, that whether it was totally intentional from the start or something that emerged, kind of like blossomed out of your art and your expression, you've built a really incredible community, and your music has made an impact on a lot of people. And I know a lot of people who are listening to this right now, one of their biggest goals is to make music that really connects with people and to do it as a career. And I'm curious what your advice would be for someone who is maybe earlier on, they're starting out and they have a passion for making music, and they're a bit on the edge in terms of like going all in on it, and they're maybe questioning like, can I really do this? I'm curious what your advice would be for them to get started, and some of the best lessons that you've learned when it comes to building a successful career.
I've had some really incredible mentors over the years, and there's so many bits of guidance. And I think right now it is simultaneously a very easy and very difficult time to get started. It is so powerful to understand betting on yourself over and over again, and the idea that there are so many times where I felt like this next project, this can't possibly work. And there's the fear and uncertainty and doubt comes in every time. It's always there. And having the guidance to say, okay, I see where it is that I want to go with this, and having the ability to look forward into the future and then work backwards from there. So one of the bits of guidance I was given early on in this whole process was the ability to talk to an older version of myself. So I have like an 80-year-old Justin that has gone through this whole music process and released 20 albums and played Red Rocks and touched lots of people and taught people. And then I can talk to him and get feedback and get advice, and it helps break. And I do that every day, and it helps break down and break through obstacles. So that's a little bit more on the spiritual side of things. And on a functional side, I think that what I was saying before about being easy and difficult is that it's true that there is a lot of noise right now, but you are not late. There are not too many artists. We do not have too many podcasts. I think that whole narrative is such nonsense. And the flip side is that there's so much good advice. You can get stuck in this loop of constantly taking advice and constantly doing another tutorial and reading another book, and that biasing towards actually doing stuff and making things is the skill that is going to get you through to the next phase. You don't need another tutorial. You don't need another masterclass. It's like just do the thing. And most of the people that I know from when I started have the sense of moving towards doing things first, because it's so easy to get caught in this web of overthinking.
Super helpful. Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is that right now, especially with the abundance of information that we have and great advice, now there's more of a priority that we need to form around taking action and having a bias towards trying something and seeing what happens, and then kind of self-correcting from there based on what happens for you.
100%.
That exercise you talked about is really interesting, about getting in touch with a future version of yourself and getting advice from the 80-year-old version of Justin. What that reminds me of is, and I think you mentioned something earlier that seemed to be in this world of like quantum physics. One of the great benefits of AI nowadays is crazy things like quantum physics. You can go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, talk to me like I'm 10 years old, and I want to know like how does quantum physics works." So I had that conversation like a week ago, and now I'm definitely a total expert. I understand all the answers. But one of the things that kind of stuck with me that I thought was really interesting, and what you just shared reminded me of, is that one of the roots of quantum physics is that when something is observed, like it actually gets collapsed into a definite thing. And until like you observe it, it's kind of oscillating in multiple different states of like potential. It's almost like potential energy versus is collapsed into like definite thing. So the act of like measuring something, or the act of observing something literally fundamentally changes the thing that's being observed. Like, that's really interesting. And so I don't know exactly how it ties together, but I get the sense that that exercise you just shared is somehow connected to that, the science of what's happening with quantum physics. Like, when you do get connected with, this future version of yourself, I think that probably just the act of observing it and getting advice, it has some sort of interconnected quantum like entanglement that's happening with like a future version of yourself.
You're tapping into the quantum field. Yes. I'll get a little woo woo with it, but there's this video that's gone a bit viral. Have you seen this video of the Blue Angels that are there doing the envisioning practice, the pilots?
I feel like it's vaguely ringing a bell, but you'll have to remind me.
There's a video of the Blue Angels pilots, and they're all sitting around a table. And when they do these crazy the theatrics, the planes, it's so precisely coordinated that they're there, and you can see them running through them all in this dance where their eyes are closed, and they're moving the airplane controls and flipping, because if they have one little mistake, they all die. So, and you can see them going through this, calling it out. It's a beautiful practice about watching people use the power of vision to entrain what's going to happen next, because they do this over and over and over again. And then when they're up in the sky, boom, they're just, it's on autopilot. And I think that, it's actually not, that part of it's not that woo woo, but from what we're talking about before with the vision practice, I think about the connecting with the future self it's a version of that, and thinking there's this idea that, okay, so if I want to be a musician and live my life creating music and getting paid for it, I have to do this first. Well, I have to have this thing. I have to have this other piece of gear, and I'm going to, after I get all this stuff, then I'm going to be able to do that. And I think that the ability to flip that around and feel what it's like to feel that version of yourself here now, then operate from there. I make a totally different set of decisions, and that can be really helpful. So in a sense, yes, it's that same idea of tapping into the quantum version of yourself, because right now I can be the scared version of myself that feels paralyzed, or I can tap into the version that has the things that I need and has the tools available. And that also gets back to the tutorial side of things, because it's so easy to buy stuff now. It's so easy to get another plugin, another synth, or whatever that thing is, watch another tutorial. But really, most of the time, we have it all. We have everything we need right now. I mean, I have a friend of mine that just recorded this crazy, beautiful album. He recorded the guitar on his iPhone. He has Ableton Light. That's it. And it sounds great. It's not the most hi-fi thing you've ever heard, but the vibe and the intention is all in the music.
That's so powerful. What that triggered for me was a study, I think, where they basically looked at people's brain waves as they were thinking about themselves in the future versus when they thought about themselves now. And they were basically studying like habits and people, delayed gratification, basically. And what they found was that the quote unquote high achievers, or the people that had a subjectively and objectively like higher standard of life in the future, were people that when they thought about their future self, the same part of their brain lit up as when they thought about their current self. So it was like the same part of their prefrontal cortex, versus when people struggled to actually stick with a habit, when they thought about their future self, the part of their brain lit up that's associated with thinking about somebody else and not like identifying with it.
Oh, wow.
And I think the takeaway there, the takeaway there was like, connected to what we're talking about with potentially there's like a quantum effect or there's some sort of scientific basis in like, actually bringing that into fruition now and actually connecting with that and identifying with it. Maybe what Gandhi said was, be the change you want to see in the world. Seems like that's kind of at the root of what he's probably trying to convey there.
Absolutely. Be the thing. And this is why music is so powerful. This is what I love about it so much, is when I get into the studio and I start to create, I'm trusting all of this stuff. I'm trusting the mystery, the reason why any of this is happening or why it works, and time traveling, knowing that this thing will outlive and outlast my lifetime, and whatever it is that I'm putting into it, I want to share, needs to be a real transmission from whatever I'm feeling right now in this moment into the music, but ultimately knowing that it's not really about me. I feel like I'm part of this lineage, and yourself and all of the people who are coming into this process of making music. We're not these individuals siloed off in these places. We're all connected through the web of music, and it can be really relieving in a time when people can be isolated, to feel like we're part of a lineage. It's like you hop on the music train and there's all these people in there that have been doing this for a very long time, and you get to ride along and connect with that. And music is time travel. I mean, I love listening to from music from all over the world, and I think that there's the quantum particle thing is interesting. And I say that in quotes, not the because I actually don't know anything about the real physics. But when you sample something, when I was just working with a sample from TrackLib, where they have these tons of world music on there, and I got this harp sample from an Indian record, and I was listening to it, thinking about where this was recorded, the other sounds in the recording. You could hear someone in the room, and I love the feeling that I'm time traveling through the ether and then pulling that into my production. And when I think about AI, this is actually something that maybe this is a romantic way to think about it, but AI doesn't really do that. So when you're generating something with AI, it's not coming from a real physical time and place. And you can make some really cool sounds, but it doesn't carry that quantum charge of that person in that room at that point in time in India when they recorded that instrument, bringing it into right now. So it's, I don't know, the technology question is it's super interesting, because it's not good or bad or anything. It's if anything, it's simply complex.
It's super interesting. I'm also not an expert in either quantum physics or in like the root of exactly how these AI models are built and LLMs. But from the limited amount that I understand, part of the foundation of how these models work is that they're predicting the next token, and that they're doing this based on that, like, a robust training data source that, like, can, as best as possible, predict like what comes next. And I've heard that before from a standpoint of like, it's not what it's doing doesn't matter, or it's not actually like doing anything creative, because it's like, it's like built on the training data. And I have a gut intuition that there's something interesting. There's kind of magic there that maybe functions in a way that mirrors how our brains function and how we predict, sort of the next thought or the next thing that we say. And yeah, I don't really know how it works, but I do know that, like, right now we're having this conversation, and I know that there's some like weird stuff happening with the sense of self, or this like identity, or the sense of free will, where it's like, there's definitely an appearance that like I'm, kind of like saying all of these things, but in truth, like I actually don't even know what the next word I'm going to say is. Like it's kind of just like happening. And if I'm truly kind of like sitting here with it, it's just sort of like it's coming out. So it's like, where's that coming from?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yes, that's such an interesting way to think about these technologies, is to look at the way that they mirror us. And it's, in one sense, it's interesting because people say, well, these bits of technology have all of this training data. They've listened to every song, and now you make a song and it sounds kind of like the Beatles. Well, I'm the same, right? We also listen to music. I listen to the Beatles. I listened to Pink Floyd and Kendrick Lamar the other day. And then the following morning, I didn't listen to the Beatles in the morning, but I went into the studio and that all was back in there somewhere. And I really agree with what you said, and that there's something interesting about playing with them because it feels familiar that we're using this technological version of ourselves because they've also listened to this music. And then when stuff comes out, it has this, you can go into these models and have it make something that sounds kind of like the Beatles, that's same but different. And when I play in a chord progression from some old psychedelic rock song, it's that same thing, and we're just combining things in different ways. I think where it gets sticky is the people that are profiting from this stuff. Whereas if you have these large companies in Silicon Valley that are the ones that have the reins and are making the lion's share of the profits, that's when the copyright conversation becomes interesting. But on a spiritual level, I completely agree with what you're saying. And maybe we'll look back at this as a funny conversation where, like we thought that we were special and that AI couldn't actually really create anything with that sense. But you imagine kids that are 3, 4, 5 years old right now, they're going to grow up interacting with LLMs and creating music. Maybe all of music creation will be mediated by LLMs in some way, or at least all of the electronic version of it. So in some sense, it will become part of this whole method. But even it's also interesting to me that the way that we romanticize DAWs, because if I would have taken Ableton and showed it to someone in the 70s, they'll be like, "You're cheating. What is this shit?" Like, it is so powerful. It's basically already there. These tools are advancing so rapidly.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, one way I like to look at like musical influences or inspiration and this idea of originality is that it's sort of like we're all children. Like we're all children of our parents or our influences. And so all the artists that we listen to, it's like if you take your 5 favorite artists of all time, then we're probably like a baby that's like all of them combined. And and like with a child, sure, like they have strands of their parents' DNA and there's recognition there, but there's also something unique or original that comes out of it, and it has its own extension. And yeah, I wonder if what AI is doing is similar in a way. It's certainly different in that there's such a clear red line around like how it's trained versus with humans. It's sort of like, what are they going to do? Like follow you around and be like, "Oh, you listen to the Beatles for 10 minutes today." Like, you got to pay like 0.1%. So
I mean, maybe those days might be coming. That's really nice.
Have you gotten your Neuralink installed yet?
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Justin, it's been a really fun conversation. I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and really looking forward to digging more into your music. Really vibing with everything that you're saying. And so if someone's here right now and they are interested in being a part of the journey as well and checking out what you're releasing, where can they go to listen more?
Thanks for having me, Michael. And yeah, you can check me out on socials at Boreta, Boreta, and you'll find all the stuff there. Or you can go to my site, which is Beretta.net.
Awesome. Well, like always, we'll put the links in the show notes for easy access. And Justin, thanks again for coming on the podcast today.
Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.